Welcome to Fashion Designers Get Paid, a podcast for burnt out fashion designers who want to ditch the toxic rat race, say bye-bye to backstabbing bosses, and work with brands who value and respect them. I'm your host, Heidi, and I believe that you can do things differently in your fashion career. Because the truth is, most industry jobs will underpay and overwork you, and having your own brand is far from profitable. Let's also be honest, most of them fail. So if you actually want to, be a fashion designer and get paid, the best way to do it is as a freelancer. Now, maybe you've been told that brands don't accept remote freelancers, or that freelancing means being an exploited temp employee working full-time without benefits. Or to work freelance, you have to be a rock star expert with all the skills from design through development. I'm going to show you that it is possible to be a real freelancer in fashion, work remotely with brands you love, and make money, even if you're terrified you don't have all the answers. You got this, and I'm here to help you do it. What is more profitable, starting a fashion brand or being a freelance fashion designer? I've done both, and I've interviewed hundreds of people who have done both. And the answer in my head is super obvious, but I get asked this question a lot. So I thought I'll talk about it here on the podcast. In this episode, I'm going to share the differences between starting your own clothing line and freelancing in fashion. I will share which one is more profitable, and spoiler alert, this is not a close race. One of them massively takes the cake. So if you want to work for yourself in fashion and make money, this will help you figure out which fashion career to pursue. Let's get to it. If you want to work for yourself in fashion and make money, there is one way to do it. Now, I know that having your own clothing line can feel like a dream. You come up with some ideas, you get them manufactured, and you start selling. Like, really, how hard could it be? But the truth is that if you want to actually make money, starting a clothing line is one of the least profitable things in fashion. In fact, you will likely end up losing money, lots of money. Here's the thing. Losing money was pretty much the number one topic that fashion brand guests on my podcast were bummed to admit. I have interviewed hundreds of people, and a lot of them are fashion brand founders. And they said, I'm losing so much money. It is the reality that a lot of fashion industry experts will not tell you. And the opposite of this is that what a lot of people don't know is that there's a much better way to work for yourself in fashion and make money. Now, if you've been around for a while or you've tuned in before, you know that I'm probably talking about freelancing in fashion. And no, I'm not talking about permalancing, where you work for one brand full-time as an exploited temp employee without benefits. That's kind of the worst. I'm talking about real freelancing, where you're in control of your own business, you set your own schedule and rates, and you work wherever and whenever you want. That is how you work for yourself in fashion and make money. And I am talking about upwards of $100,000 plus a year while doing work that you love. Now, I know this because I have done both. I had my own fashion brand and I freelanced. And many of my students have had the same exact experiences. One of my students, she's a graduate of my FAST program. Her name's Sophia. She shared her whole story on the SFF podcast. We'll link to that episode in the show notes, but it essentially went like this. Sophia spent 5 years building her lingerie brand. Finally, in year 4, she was barely able to pay herself minimum wage. That's a long time to work at something before you're barely making minimum wage. So she decided to start freelancing. And within 10 days of freelancing, she had her first paying client. A few months later, she was earning a comfortable full-time salary. Think about that. 5 years to barely pay herself minimum wage with her own fashion brand, yet only months to start earning a comfortable full-time salary as a freelancer, okay? Now listen, I know it's not all about the money, right? Money is a very tangible, easy way to measure things. So let's look at, from a high level, the pros and cons to starting a fashion brand versus freelancing in fashion. So first, we'll go through the pros of starting a fashion brand or a clothing line. First, you technically, when you are your own fashion brand owner, you have no boss and you are legitimately 100% working for yourself, right? It does give you ultimate freedom in some ways. You literally have no one to answer to. And in addition to that, you have 100% creative control. With your own clothing line, you are the creative mastermind behind every single aspect, from design concepts to production and branding. Your vision is intact and you can fully express your artistic talents. So those are some of the pros to starting a clothing line. Now let's talk about some of the cons to starting a clothing line. First, It takes a tremendous amount of time. Launching a clothing line is a time-consuming process, and it requires a lot of patience and a lot of perseverance. From the initial idea through manufacturing and distribution, it can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months or even longer just to bring one design to market. Okay, so a lot of time to get started. Next, it takes a lot of money to start a clothing line. It is expensive AF. You will need to invest substantial capital into sourcing materials, production, marketing, distribution, etc. The total investment is looking like thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars just to get off the ground. Now we're looking at this. We're like, okay, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of money. And I'm going to give you the kicker here. Your chances of success are extremely low. Now, I don't have specific data on this, but I have interviewed hundreds of people. I have been in the industry for 15 years. I've talked to a lot of people. The chances of starting a successful fashion brand is very, very low. Our industry is extremely competitive and it's very saturated with tons of people trying to start a brand. It can be really difficult to stand out and gain recognition. To compound all of this, profitability is really, really low. If you are lucky enough to gain some momentum with sales, it happens, right? You're still going to have to reinvest a significant portion of that back into the business to sustain growth. It can take years to become profitable if you ever even do. And then beyond all of this, when you're running a fashion brand, a clothing line, you have a tremendous amount of business responsibilities. You're not only responsible for the creative aspects, which is actually going to be like 10 or 20% of the workload. You're more responsible for customer service, marketing, sales, promotion, product development, etc. And you're really looking at about 10 to 20% of your time on like the fun design stuff, with about 80, 90% of your time on the business side of things. Okay. So that is the reality of starting a fashion brand. Again, I know this because I had my own brand, and I know this because I have talked to and interviewed hundreds of people in the fashion industry. So let's look at the opposite side of the table, which is freelancing in fashion. The pros of freelancing in fashion. First of all, it is quick to get started. Freelancing in fashion, you can hit the ground running. I have people who've come to some of my training events. I have people who've listened to the podcast or watched on YouTube, and literally within a week or two have landed their first, second, maybe even third paying client. You can get started like today. All right. Beyond that is minimal startup costs. Unlike starting a clothing brand, which requires a lot of capital to get started, you might be looking at an Adobe Illustrator subscription, which runs like 20 bucks. Excel, you can get Excel for $7 a month, or maybe you can even use Google Sheets to do it for free. You can begin offering services for very, very little a month. We're looking at like less than $30 a month. That is nothing compared to what it costs to start a clothing brand. And then all of this, you can get started fast. It doesn't cost a lot of money. And then third, you have a higher chance of success. Again, now I don't have data on this, okay? So this is a little bit of hearsay, a little bit of me going with my gut, knowing what I know from my personal experience, from teaching hundreds of freelance fashion designers how to succeed, from interviewing hundreds of people on the podcast and on YouTube here. You have a much higher chance at success as a freelance fashion designer or TDPD, what have you, than launching a clothing line, okay? Beyond that, the profitability is enormous, okay? As a freelancer, the majority of the earnings go right back into your pocket, okay? You can charge competitive rates. You can keep a very high percentage of the rates that you're charging. Unlike a fashion brand, you're not continually reinvesting that money back into the business, okay? As you tend to grow as a freelancer, you have the same software and the same overhead, and your profit just gets higher and higher. And then last, you got to be really selective about your work opportunities. Freelancing empowers you to choose projects that you're most passionate about. You can work with brands that align with your personal vision and ethos, and you get to be very particular about the type of work that you do. Okay. Now then, of course, there are some cons to freelancing in fashion, right? First is client expectations. And I won't lie that in a way, a freelance client can start to feel a little bit like a boss, right? So you need to adapt and work creatively within the brand vision while delivering the expected outcomes. So you don't get the freedom that you might get with your own fashion brand. You still are reporting to someone, right? You still have someone else that you're liable to. And you also, coming with that same type of idea of a little bit of a boss situation, you do get somewhat limited creative control, right? You can choose the brands that you work with, you can choose the projects that you work with, but you obviously still have to design and build into that brand's requirements, okay? So listen, if your goal is to work for yourself in fashion and make money, freelancing is how you do it, okay? I know that starting a clothing line has the allure of complete creative control and autonomy and building out this brand that you will likely be very proud of. I'm not here to tell you not to do it, but I'm here to tell you to know what you're getting into from a financial perspective, from a time investment perspective, and chances of success perspective. These are the realities, okay? By freelancing in fashion, you get to work for yourself in fashion. You get to make money. You get freedom in your day. You're not tied to a desk. And you also get the financial rewards while doing work that you love with brands that you're passionate about. So I would love to help you to succeed. Keep listening to the podcast. Keep watching here on YouTube. You got this. You're doing great. If you liked this video, you're going to love this one. Hit play now, and thanks for watching.